Okay, the article that I chose to review was Employees' Objections to Organizational Change, a Framework for Addressing Management Responses, by Louise Brings Luis. Excuse the pronunciation, pretty hard to pronounce. But this article was very interesting because it came from the perspective of both the manager and the employee when it came to organizational change and resistance to it. So, from the managerial standpoint, it was in how the manager viewed that organizational change, uh, resistance based from how the employee was reacting. So, it gave four different categories that um, resistance could fall into. The first one was whistleblowing. So that was it was supposed to be in a very public setting, very directed towards the manager, and to the point where, like, the manager initially always takes this as kind of a negative thing, a negative reaction is whistleblowing. Um, in the paper, though, it stated that whistleblowing could be interpreted in a couple different ways. You could see whistleblowing as kind of a positive in the fact that people are very dedicated to your company and they are very loyal to your company, so they don't want to see change because they believe that the way it's going right now is the way it should be in the way that it operates best, in a sense. Um, so it was kind of interesting to see the point where, as a manager, you kind of see it as, okay, no, there's a lot of whistleblowing going on. We need to nip this in the bud. We need to get this change going. But then it was also kind of cool to see from the other perspective as why employees start whistleblowing, because they think that something's wrong. They think that there's a problem and that this needs to be corrected. The next one is opinionated resistance. And really, the manager could take this one of two ways. They could see it as uh, they're throwing out their opinion, meaning they don't want to do it, or possibly, and even the better one is they see it as a chance for open dialogue, which, in the sense of why the employee is voicing his opinion, it's a pretty obvious kind of deal. Like, hey, I'm voicing my opinion because I want to talk about this. And it's really up to the manager in this situation to see, well, how do I want to react to it? Do I want to kind of just silence them and kind of move forward with everything? Or am I going to take this opportunity to open some dialogue with my employees and get things moving in the right direction? The next one, or the next two, I should say, are very similar in how they're presented. It's resistance through trauma or resistance through disposition. So basically, this type of resistance in the article was related to each other in the fact that they're both a very staunch form of resistance. And in the trauma case, what they are talking about is how people just react badly to this type of change. If it's a big change, they're going to react negatively to it. It's just a natural reaction. They compare it to like being scared of the dark when you're a kid, or being afraid of strangers. So it's something that's just a natural reaction to big change. And it pointed out in the article that people should not be worried about this kind of change as much as other types. This is a very natural thing. What they proposed doing was having like a workshop where people work on talking about these things, or a seminar where they go over all the positives of all the change that can be brought in on all of this stuff. And it's this form of resistance is more now, in today's world, it's being viewed as something that is just a natural part of organizational change, and it's okay. Um, Now, the other part of it, which is resistance by disposition, is something that a lot of companies are finding out more and more now that they've started doing those personality tests, and they've done different research on how things or people react to different things. And a lot of this is personality based testing. Um, so some people are more inclined to just completely resist change. They don't want to do it. They've got their feet firmly planted in the ground and they're not going anywhere. So really, the best thing to do in this situation, according to the article, was to identify who those people are and then just kind of accept the fact that not everyone's going to agree with you and move on to the next part, which is implementing your plan and kind of moving through the process and just kind of almost ignoring these people and moving forward and then addressing the problems once you've been able to kind of establish yourself and get everything moving in the direction of change that you want. So that was the article that Miss Louise brings. Excuse the pronunciation again. That is her article that she presented. I thought it was a very well thought out article, giving different perspectives from both a managerial and an employee standpoint, which I thought was a pretty unique way to present things. I really enjoyed reading it. Gave me different thoughts about why change is difficult in certain situations and different in different positions, which I thought was a cool concept. Is like whatever position you're in, the change is going to be viewed as something different. Like they said something about how, from the managerial standpoint, it's like, oh, it's part of the conceptual vision of the change that we're bringing apart. And then if you get down into the employees, it's back to what we were talking about with the whistleblowing, opinionated resistance, resistance through trauma, or resistance through disposition. So it was kind of interesting to read. I definitely recommend it to anybody else looking to read up more on the subject. But thanks for your time. My name is Chris Forstier again. Have a good night.